David sat down on the windowsill and stared into the darkness. Every word the children's parents had said to one another was deeply engraved upon his mind. He had known that he must go, and go soon, but the fact that danger was so near at hand was something that he'd not realised. And now he'd been aware of all that was amiss with him, and he knew he could never put it right. He didn't think that he was so amiss, but other people obviously thought so. In the morning, the children's father would try to question him. He would call in the police in the belief that he could still take care of David, even after they had laid hands on him. He must leave that very night. David took the bundle out of the cupboard together with his bottle, his knife and his small scrap of soap. For one moment he considered taking a larger piece of soap from the bathroom. He would have liked to have taken a sponge and his toothbrush as well, and a candle and some fresh matches. But then he decided not to. He would have to go in Andrea's clothes, which he was wearing, for the children's mother had never given him back his own, and she said she might have them. But apart from the clothes, he would take nothing at all with him. They weren't evil people. They'd been kind to him, even though they were ready to give him up now. They were acting out of ignorance, since they had no idea what would happen when they caught him again. He would have to be right away from the house before they arrived the next day, but he would write the letter so that he could at least say thank you. He had the paper and pencil he had bought. It would take a long time and he would have to hurry, so he could be well on his way before morning, but it couldn't be helped. David sat down and thought for a long time, and then he wrote, very, very slowly and very carefully. I heard everything you said. I shall go now, as soon as I finish writing. I only wanted to stay here as long as you wished me to. I shall have to keep Andrea's clothes because you've not given me back my own. I want to thank you for letting me listen to music and read books, and because everything is so beautiful here. And thank you for the food you've given me and for letting me sleep in a bed. I have never murdered anyone and never used force nor stolen from anybody. I've taken no one's joy or happiness or freedom or property away from him. And I've never betrayed anyone. I am telling you this because I want you to know something about me and to let people know that that's all I'm going to tell. If the police catch me, I shall die, but I shall tell them no more. It is important not to give in to people who love violence and think they have the right to take another man's life and liberty. And if you don't let them change what you think and believe, then you have won. A man once told me that, and that's why I shall go on being David, always, for as long as I'm still alive. I'm glad I told Maria that evil exists. I don't want her to be afraid, but it's something you have to know about. Can't you understand that children have a right to know everything that's true? If there's danger, you have to recognise it, or else you can't take care of yourself. I am writing because I want to say thank you for the things you've given me, and to tell you that from my own free will that I'm going to tell. Ever, David. It had taken him a long time to write the letter. David looked at the clock on the chest of drawers, and it was now 1:30 in the morning. He wanted to write something about Maria, something that would make them take great care of her, but he didn't know how to do it. Suddenly, as if he'd overheard his thoughts, she was standing there in the doorway, and she was looking frightened. David! Shh! David whispered in alarm. Maria came into the room, shutting the door behind her. David! I woke up so frightened. I thought you were in the fire and I couldn't find you. I've got to go away, Maria, David said. Oh no, David, why? David told her everything her parents had said while he was standing outside within earshot. So, you see, I must go now while it's still night, he concluded, when she had heard everything. Fortunately, Maria had never doubted what he'd said was right. She made no protest. She just looked at him and whispered, David, you'll come back, won't you? Even if it's not for a long time, say you'll come back. David looked at her dumbly. Then he said, I can't say that. If I say that I'll come back one day, then I will. But if I don't know, so I won't promise because a promise is important. But David, who will tell me about everything when you're gone? Ah yes, who will look after Maria? But if he did not go, they would come and take him. He would not be able to look after her anyway. Then David did something he had never done before. Of his own free will, he touched someone else. He laid his hands on Maria's shoulders and looked straight into her eyes. And then he said slowly, so that she could remember what he had said and to try and understand it, You must do it yourself, Maria. You must teach yourself all about things When there's no one else to do things for you, you have to do them yourself. You must listen carefully to the people who you think are good, your mother, your father, and the people who teach you things in school. Then you must think over what they say and decide how much of it you feel is right. But you must be careful, because what is right is not always what you want, and if you make a mistake, you regret it afterwards. But David, I'm not clever enough. Oh, why do you have to go? I'd be much rather if you stayed. Will you take me with you? It would not be right. Your mother and father would be frightened, and you've got no right to make anyone afraid. In a way, it's just like using violence. Besides, you wouldn't like it. I often have no food and nowhere to sleep. That wouldn't matter if you were there. You can think about me, Maria, and then I shan't be quite alone. Will you think about me too? Yes. Always? Yes. David, will you hold me fast before you go so I can remember what it felt like when you were near to me? David nodded. He put his comb, pencil and paper in his bundle. He had everything now. Meanwhile, Maria stood watching him, and then she said, David, wait here a moment. David stood and waited, quite sure that Maria would never give him away. A moment later she was back, holding in her hand a little cross of gold, covered with tiny little seed pearls. That's for you, David, to take with you. The cross hung on a slender chain, and she stood on tiptoe to fasten it round David's neck. Thank you, David said. Now, I'm going. He put his bundle down on the table, put his arms around her and held her tight, just for a short moment. It was like the day when he'd rescued her from the fire. Goodbye, Maria. Goodbye, David. David went quickly and without looking at her again, shut the door softly behind him.